Professor Bernard?
Yeah, Professor Krishnan, I'm here.
Shall we start now, or?
Yeah, we can start. Yeah, we can start.
Okay, okay.
We'll see. Just Dr. Kamath is come.
Yeah, he has come. He's joined.
Okay, then we will start. Yeah.
And yes. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Dr. S. Krishnan, Professor and Head, Department of Botany, Goa University, and member of Institutions Innovation Council, Goa University. Professor B.F. Rodrigues is the Director of Internship, Incubation, and Industry Partnership, and President of Institutions Innovation Council, Goa University. We have all assembled for an important session on National Educational Policy 2020. This webinar is organized by the Institutions Innovation Council of Goa University. On behalf of the Institutions Innovation Council, Goa University, and my own behalf, I welcome you all for this webinar. Institutions Innovation Council of Goa University is formed under MHRD. We have 4 eminent speakers on this occasion, and I have the pleasant task to introduce them to you. First speaker, Professor Gervasio Mendes, is the principal of Government College, Sankalem, and additional director of Directorate of Higher Education, Government of Goa. Second speaker, Professor Rahul Tripathi, is the head of Political Science Department at Goa University and director of Directorate of he is also adjunct faculty at Naval War College. Besides, he is the director of foreign students at Goa University and a resource person at HRDC, Goa University, on the theme of interdisciplinarity in higher education. Third speaker, Dr. Nandkumar M. Kamath, a former faculty member of Botany Department of Goa University, is a well-known figure in every household of Goa. He has been a social commentator and a science writer for nearly 4 decades. He is an active member of several state committees, including the State National Education Policy Committee. Fourth speaker, Sri Manguresh Pai Raikar, is the chairman of RCPR College of Agriculture at Savai Varem, Goa. A first-generation entrepreneur, he is the chairman and managing director of Brown Packaging Systems Private Limited. He is also chairman of National Council for MSME, AZOCOM. In recent years, he has led Indian entrepreneurs delegation to several countries. So we have 4 eminent speakers. With this, I invite first speaker, Professor Gervasio Mendes. The topic, the National Educational Policy 2020, Issues in Higher Education, a reflection. I request each speaker to take 20 minutes for their presentation. Once all the speakers complete their talk, at the end we will have the discussion. I request all those who are joined in this webinar to put off their microphone and video, except the speaker. Thank you.
Am I audible, Professor Krishnan?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Audible and clear, sir. Yes.
Good afternoon. Professor Krishnan, Professor Bernard, my fellow speakers, Dr. Nandakumar, Professor Rahul Tripathi, Sri Manguresh Bab, and all the people who are attending this webinar. A good afternoon to all of you. Friends, my presentation I would like to have in 3 parts. The first part, which is a very short part, is where I dwell on what education is. The second part is where I would like to pinpoint what the National Education Policy has pinpointed as the problems faced by higher education. Side by side, I will also look at the solution, the panacea that is suggested by the document. And the third part is where I would like to give suggestions on what could be done in the near future for us to get on the track of adopting of the National Education Policy. At the outset, let me say that education is a process. In this process, a society deliberately transmits its accumulated knowledge, skills, and values. The stress here is on knowledge, skills, and values from one generation to another. This is the basis of development and empowerment of the generations to come. When I look at higher education in this whole scenario, I look at higher education as something that builds on the foundation of the primary and the secondary education. And therefore, if in the primary education, a student learns the basics, the higher education gives the impetus, gives wings to this, so that the learner undergoes realization, the learner becomes empowered. It is with this setting that we have the new Education Policy 2020, which sets out the goal of higher education and says quality universities and quality colleges, a new and forward-looking vision for India's higher education system. When it talks about this, in my second part, I would like to look at comparatively of what it has found out are the flaws of the present system and what this policy document seeks to do to undo the flaws that are present in the system. The document says that the present higher education ecosystem is fragmented. You have different types of universities, varied colleges, big universities having large number of affiliating colleges. And therefore, to remedy this situation, the National Education Policy seeks to have an education system of large multidisciplinary universities and colleges. It proposes to have one in every district, where higher education will integrate professional and vocational education. Now, this has never been before. You had standalone colleges either offering a general education program or a professional program. Second, there was less emphasis, and there is less emphasis on the development of cognitive skills. How to rectify that? The National Education Policy proposes setting up of startup incubation centers, technology development centers, and it will have funding from the National Research Foundation, NRF. This National Research Foundation will provide the financial muscle for any aspiring researcher to take up research. And this research, the NRF does talk about NRF for the faculty, but it also talks about the funding that will be available for even students. We had a rigid separation of disciplines. The catchword under the National Education Policy is that we need to have a more multidisciplinary undergraduate ecosystem of education. Limited access, especially in socio-economically disadvantaged areas, and few colleges or higher education institutions teaching in the local language. This is to be rectified by having more higher education institutions with a blend of the local language as well as the English language. The access has to be increased. Equity will be given prominence, and inclusion will be the buzzword in any higher education institution. There has been limited teacher and institutional autonomy. This is sought to be rectified by faculty and institutional autonomy, which will come with accountability. The document stresses on the institutional development plan, and if with one goes by the document, the IDP, as it is called, will be an exercise for an institution to set a vision for itself, in which a large number of stakeholders, in fact, practically every stakeholder, will be involved in this whole process. You start with the students, who are the major stakeholders in the entire process of education, till the board of governors. So that's the spectrum that we are looking at as far as the formation or the planning of the institutional development plan is concerned. There has been an inadequate mechanism for merit-based career management and progression of faculty and institutional leaders. This will be done by reaffirming the integrity of faculty and institutional leadership positions through merit, appointment based on merit, and career progression based on of teaching, research, and service. Now, these are the three areas that the document talks about. We'll have to wait and see how it is spelled out, because it talks about teaching, research, and service. It also talks about leadership that will be groomed. Generally, what happens is, whenever somebody retires, we have not made provisions for creating enough leadership that will take over and ensure a continuous process in the higher education process. For a large number of times, you look at issues where somebody has retired, the post is given on ad hoc basis to somebody till such time if there is a felt need for RRs to be formed or something else to be done, it takes a lot of time. And in the meantime, the greatest loser is higher education, because the baton has to pass on smoothly. And this is what the new document talks about. Lesser emphasis on research, lack of competitive peer-reviewed research funding across disciplines. I was fortunate to have to be the expert, Goa expert, when the NAC has recently, the report has not yet come out, but the NAC report will come out, where they have done a study across Goa colleges to find out. And I had done the SWOT analysis for Goa. And what has come out across colleges which have gone for NAC accreditation is this: there has been lesser emphasis on research, or there's not enough publications of good stature coming out. Now, this is to be done. The NRF comes again here, establishment of a National Research Foundation. This fund will support outstanding peer-reviewed research and to actively seed research in universities and colleges. Next flaw that the document points out is suboptimal governance and leadership of higher education institution. This is sought to be rectified by governance of higher education institutions by highly qualified independent boards. The document talks about the board of governors having academic and administrative autonomy. To what extent this will spell out, how far this autonomy will seep into the system, only time will tell. But this is a very good departure that we look at in this document. An ineffective regulatory system at present is sought to be rectified by a light but tight regulation by a single regulator. In this whole system, the Higher Education Commission of India, HECI, will be the apex body, with 4 verticals with clear-cut functions among each one of them. So there will be a functional separation of these 4 verticals that will come under the HECI. The National Higher Education Regulatory Council is the first one, which will exclude medical as well as law education. It will have regulation, and they have said this will be a regulation which will be light but tight. As far as accreditation is concerned, it will be the NAC, National Accreditation Council, NAC, which will look at these. It will look at also issues like institutional development plans and others. The National Higher Education Grants Council, HEGC, will be looking at funding and financing, and this is sought to be done in a very transparent manner. The 4th vertical is the General Education Council. Its major task will be to determine the learning outcomes, or what we call as graduate attributes. It will formulate a national higher education college qualification framework. This is where the vocationalized of education will come, to be in sync with the national skills qualification framework, and to enable the ease and integration of vocational education into higher education. So therefore, this task will be given to this body to look at how we will be able to integrate the vocational education into this. The last flaw that the document points out is large affiliating universities, resulting in low standards of undergraduate education. Now, this is sought to be optimized by corrected through optimal learning environments and supports to students. I'll take you back to the first one, where they talk about large universities and a student strength of 3,000 plus. So this is how the whole module is being unfolded. Friends, as I look at this, and the document talks about various other issues, but the central theme is this. It looks at these flaws and how it will look. One very good sign about this document is that it is broken into 4 parts. And the 4th part is something that was not present in the earlier documents very explicitly. The 4th part, the first part looks at school education. The second part looks at the higher education. The third part looks at other key areas of concern or focus. And the 4th part looks at how it can happen. It's called making it happen. And I think this making it happen sets the roadmap for any state and for the central government to decide on what could be done. It is in this context that I would like to say, especially in the Goan context, what we could do. And then I will wrap up with what we are already doing at present. Arvind Panagria, who was formerly with Niti Aayog, now is Columbia University, he talks about a strategy in which, when you know that the time span is 2030, 2035, 2040, where many of us who are at the later end of our career will not even be able to see. But how could this be continuous, and how we could start getting the benefits is what he calls as low-hanging fruits. He says, concentrate on the low-hanging fruits that we could have first, and then chart out your course. In the Goan context, I would say we need to seriously look at these issues, which we can implement in a short period of time. Firstly, all HEIs to become multidisciplinary by 2030. We could set a task for us to do it even before that. That this multidisciplinary nature that the document talks about could spread among all the higher education institutions in the state. Higher education, the second, higher education institutions' other crucial responsibilities like supporting HEIs in their development, community engagement and service, contribution to various fields of practice, faculty development for the higher education system, and support of school education. Now, so far, if you look at a super complex that you have, it ends up at the high secondary level in the school, the super school complex at the school level. Here is a point where we could then extend it to higher education and make a super complex including higher education. This will enable, especially I would look at very concrete suggestions, support school education. When we talk about a 4 years program, where we talk about skilling students with skills in teaching, I think these students could then go start teaching at the school level. Have rapport with them, where the skilling of our students could be done there. Plus, apart from many other things which many higher education are doing, but it needs to be systematized, like engagement in community engagement in service, contribution to various fields of practice. I had anchored a session. We had a seminar in our college in which we had called a student representative to come and speak. So we had a high secondary principal, a person from the industry, somebody from a higher education institution like GIM, and a student. And the student was very vocal, in which he said that the local skills must be taught to the student. And how could this be taught? This was where the Goa University has been talking for a long time about professors of practice. I think this needs to be done, and this can be done in a very short period of time. We need to free undergraduates to opt for subjects across disciplines. This can be done by leveraging our already existing choice-based credit system. We already have the choice-based credit system. A slight tinkering with that will enable us to free the students, to enable them to opt for subject across disciplines. Opening of foreign universities will take time, but the initial phase could start by scouting institutions which would like to come here, sign MOUs with them. We have a wonderful concept of academic bank of credit, where you do a credit here that is saved, and all the credit that you do abroad as well as here can be saved. So MOUs, this activity of signing MOUs with institutions which show interest, the top 100 institutions which show interest to come to our state and to our country, we could start signing MOUs with them. Launch of the 4-year degree program for skills along with knowledge and values. Now, this is a very clear setup, and the earlier we give a serious thought to this, the better, because the document really talks about slowly getting into a phase of a 4-year degree program. Vocationalization of education is the in thing. Here, one point which has come out very strongly, and this has been my pet idea, which I have been even sharing with my colleagues in the higher education department, is the teacher internship. Because to start with, if some of the teachers could go to the industries maybe during the vacation or even during a semester, work there and come, they've come far richer when they come. This could be a starting point of making us look at an opportunity to link our education with vocationalization of education. So teachers internship should be followed by student internship, because if a teacher has intern, he or she would know what is happening currently in the industry. Creation of the NRF, student-teacher partnership in research, hardly needs to be emphasized, because this is going to be the ticket for us to take advantage of the National Research Foundation. The Directorate of Higher Education has already started asking colleges to submit a decadal research plan. most of the colleges have, in fact, all the colleges have already submitted a decadal research plan. And therefore, we are now looking at the possibility of having our projects ready. Come NRF, our projects will be ready to take advantage of the liberal funding that is envisaged under the NRF. Open distance learning is something which the document talks about to provide opportunities for lifelong learning. COVID-19 has forced us to make a change, and I think we need to continue with this change. COVID or no COVID, we'll have to continue with this change. Open distance learning, using technology in learning, and ensuring that our colleges are not confined to only the students who come out of the schooling system. We should open the doors for those people who are already there in the society, but who would like to come back, skill themselves and go back in the society. Multidisciplinary education and research universities, MERU. These are model public universities on the lines of IIMs, IITs. A serious thought can be given to ensure that this is done. More higher education institutions to be established in Goa. There doesn't seem to be a case, but we need to look at the critical interest of the areas that come in socio-economically disadvantaged areas. So these are the areas which we need to look at, because this will enable us to reach that objective which is clearly mentioned in the National Education Policy of going from 26% GR to 50% DR by 2035. Public funding will play a very crucial role. Although we are opening the doors for private funding, private enterprise into education, and where the document says there will be no discrimination, but I think public funding, especially in areas which are hitherto not catered to, will have to be looked at. We'll have to look at a blend of consolidation and expansion in the whole process. I also look at some of the, just to wrap up, I would say some of the initiatives that have been started at the Goa University, at the Directorate of Higher Education, sometimes in collaboration with both. And what comes to my mind immediately is the integrated master's programs that have been started by the Goa University. And if I look at the course content, they look at truly interdisciplinary. If these programs get off, I think it will give us that flavor of a multidisciplinary approach in our teaching and learning. We have the document talks about scholarships. Goa is fortunate to have large number of scholarships. In fact, we have scholarships that go a begging because there are no enough candidates who want to take advantage, either out of ignorance or because of indifference. So therefore, there are scholarships already there. Curbing commercialization of education. The Directorate of Higher Education has already taken steps. There is a capping for each of the self-finance courses, and I think that's a good path. And the last that I would like to touch upon is the recent initiative that has been taken by the higher education called Dishtavo. Now, Dishtavo has been done in partnership with Goa University. We are using the facilities of the Goa University, and this is a unique program in the whole of the country. Goa is the first state to have this program, where recorded lectures of teachers who have been called from all over the state. Each college has deputed their teachers, and these recorded lectures are available for any student. So a student from Government College Sakli can attend a lecture that is recorded of a teacher from Government College Kepe or Dempe College of Arts and Science in Miramar, and vice versa. This is a program that is ongoing, and I think therefore I see a lot of things that we have already, steps that we have already taken in this direction, which bode well for the higher education system in Goa. But as you know, there are things that still need to be done, and we need to really focus. I'm very happy that Goa already has the two committees in place. One looking after the higher education, and the other one looking after the schooling education, and therefore we are eagerly waiting for the report to come, the roadmap to be spelled out by these two important committees. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for giving the entire account of means higher education, the policy and higher education, what is happening in Goa around. And sir, we will have the question and answer at the end of this
Yes.
all the
Yes.
talk. Then now I will request Professor Rahul Tripathi to come in and his talk on from multidisciplinarity to interdisciplinarity in higher education, pathways for social innovation. I request Professor Rahul Tripathi.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope I'm audible.
Yes.
And okay, thank you, Professor Bernard. I have requested him to see if he can run my presentation. I think it's a very good opportunity to experiment with certain thoughts which have been building up over a certain period of time. Partly as part of my HRDC lectures, because those of the participants here who have been part of the Human Resource Development Center orientation courses or faculty induction programs would know that the theme of multidisciplinarity and interdisciplinarity is something which I have been now talking of for almost last 7-8 years. And when the new education policy document came, I thought perhaps that is the right time for putting those ideas into some kind of a practice. I'm so happy that I'm also getting a chance as a social scientist to speak in this gathering, because this is the innovation cell, innovation council of Goa University. And normally when you talk about innovation, it's essentially the sciences, the departments, disciplines which deal with frontiers of knowledge that generally are invited. But the very fact that you have invited a social scientist in an event which discusses innovation shows that, I mean, you do attach a great deal of value to the importance that social sciences has. So I'll try to present before you in this brief presentation some of my ideas on what the National Education Policy talks about very, very significantly, and that is the issue of multidisciplinary education. But then I also will tell you what perhaps it does not talk about, and how we could perhaps try and make up. And as I talk about moving from multidisciplinary education to interdisciplinary education, for which a certain reference was made by a fascinating presentation by Mr. Mendes, I would look at this transition as a path to social innovation by giving one small case study of what I have been discussing with some of my colleagues. So the outline of my talk today, which I thought, let me put as a kind of a PowerPoint so that it remains for our record also. Can we move to the second slide? Professor Bernard, the outline of my talk would be that, what does the National Education Policy document talk of, particularly with the reference to multidisciplinary education? Then some thoughts on multidisciplinarity and interdisciplinarity, because whenever I talk to the students, and that too at a fairly senior stage, they tend to confuse between the two. And I would argue that these two are different. Then how do I look at interdisciplinarity as being directly linked to innovative ways of looking at our social problems, and therefore interdisciplinarity and social innovation? And to just present a small case study on which I'm trying to work, and I've had some discussions with some of the people present here in this gathering, that let's argue for a kind of an innovative interdisciplinary research cluster for a coherent Goa policy on the, and the keyword got missing, the Madhei issue. Yeah, so basically analyzing Madhei as the case study. Next slide, please. How do we look at the National Education Policy document in terms of its focus on multidisciplinary education? Well, I'm sure all of you have gone through the final document, and there is an entire section which is devoted to enhancing, introducing multidisciplinary education across India, right from the grassroots level. The advantages of multidisciplinary education have been listed out fairly clearly. And since we have been observing the document right from the stage of its evolution in the early years of the present government till 2020, when the document finally came. When we used to look at the draft, which was a very comprehensive draft running into, I think, more than 300 pages, I would say that there was lesser use of the word multidisciplinarity there. You had greater discussion on interdisciplinary education, innovation, liberal arts education. In fact, there was a full chapter on liberal arts education, which got us excited particularly. And I remember at that time I was coordinating a interdisciplinary refresher course in social sciences. So I see a certain movement that has taken place from the draft stage to the present stage. The present document is certainly focusing a great deal on multidisciplinary education. What is multidisciplinarity? I think the whole idea is to expose students to various disciplines. Multidisciplinarity also adds to the existing skill sets and capacity that a student has. So a student who may be doing sciences or management should also be equipped at analyzing various social problems, if I look at it that way. Multidisciplinarity uses disciplinary language to throw greater light on the subject. So if I'm looking at a particular issue, if I look at that issue from multiple disciplinary perspectives, my understanding of the issue certainly gets enhanced because I'm able to throw a greater light on it. It adds value to the existing knowledge on the subject. But my perception is that multidisciplinarity alone may or may not lead to what I would like to call as a holistic knowledge or a holistic solution. And the biggest challenge for higher education in the coming times is, as I see it, to find solutions to the problems that the society faces. Next slide, please. So therefore, I would say that there is a need for us to move from multidisciplinarity to interdisciplinarity. Well, this is not to say that you have to be multidisciplinary first to move into interdisciplinarity. Because my argument is that most of our institutions are already multidisciplinary institutions. Goa University and its various affiliated colleges are multidisciplinary institutions. So we do not really have to reinvent the wheel here. The need of the hour for us is how do we use our existing multidisciplinary abilities to move into what I would like to call as greater national education policy in 2018 talked about interdisciplinary liberal arts education. I see the reference to this in the NEP 2020 not having the same emphasis. I personally believe that interdisciplinary education, teaching, and research is the need of the hour, keeping in mind the need for innovation and also problem solving in times of new social challenges. What is interdisciplinarity? And on this, I mean, there have been very, very extensive discussions with my own participants in the orientation courses, with my colleagues, I would say that interdisciplinarity is a step further to multidisciplinarity. It enables integrating the tools of various disciplines together in the process of creating a new body of knowledge. And therefore, it provides deeper solutions. So, I mean, the few examples which I can give are only from social sciences, and I teach political science. But I also know that political science cannot totally be disconnected, or politics of the times cannot be totally disconnected with the economics of the day. So rather than trying to find solutions to political problems in isolation, or trying to find problems to various economic issues, I think a political economy perspective does help me to understand and integrate two streams of analysis to find a holistic solution. So I mean, I would say that political economy, or the term international political economy, which is now a well-established subdiscipline within international relations, offers me that scope to understand the world through a slightly different prism. Next slide, please. But then, is it so easy simply to say that we should bring in more and more interdisciplinarity in our higher education? Aren't we already doing that? I would say that there is certainly a lot of talk on interdisciplinarity in higher education. We know that a lot of initiatives have been taken in the past in the area of interdisciplinarity, but then there have been challenges of space. I mean, when you create new disciplines by integrating disciplines, where will they be placed? Will the conventional departments allow them? So I mean, just to give an example, Department of Political I mean, I'm sure there is the same story elsewhere. So space. The other issue, of course, is the more serious issue of funding. If we do allow new courses to start, which are of interdisciplinary nature, well, where is the money going to come from? At times, we find that despite all talks of interdisciplinarity and multidisciplinarity, we are actually building up our disciplinary walls and silos more. This is not to say that some very remarkable centers, such as area study centers, gender study centers, or development studies, have not been initiated all over India. I mean, there are some excellent centers doing the job, including our own Goa University. But then such centers are always subject to the other constraints, as I have listed, of space, funding, often confronting the disciplinary walls and silos. We also started the now very well-known choice-based credit system, perhaps using the same language. But rather than the choice-based credit system, where the students had an opportunity to opt for new courses outside their discipline and therefore enhance their domain of knowledge, has it really led to a kind of an integrated thinking in them? I would say no. The CBCS has been more a kind of an add-on approach rather than bringing interdisciplinary learning. So what is the way forward? I mean, should we just talk about interdisciplinary research in our discussions, academic discussions and research papers, and stop at that? I would say no. I mean, there is a way forward with all these constraints that we talked of here. And I would like to argue that something by way of creating an interdisciplinary research cluster perhaps can become the basis or the starting point or the fountainhead for innovative practices as far as our higher education system is concerned. Using the existing resources that we have, whether it's the colleges or whether it is the university system, I think without creating new institutions, if we are in a position to start the idea of interdisciplinary research clusters where different disciplines or the faculty members having a certain interest in a particular area come together and go deeper into analyzing a particular issue, and then perhaps come up with solutions which are of an interdisciplinary nature, which are of a holistic nature. I think such solutions will have a greater bearing on policy outcomes. I mean, if you look at the entire thrust of national education policy, I mean, there is a talk about innovation, there is a talk about creativity, but there is also this very, very important thing about education becoming relevant to the needs of the society in the long run. And this is one way where I think we can directly connect our integrated learning and the outcomes to the problems that we face in the society. And in my final slide, I present a small case study which I have been discussing with some of my colleagues here. I'm so happy that our dear colleague, Dr. Nandakumar Kamath, our colleagues from botany. I also see Nitin, I've been talking to you about this for quite some time. And I'm also happy to see representatives from industry, Mr. Mangesh, and people from the government side. Let's assume for a moment that we create an interdisciplinary research cluster on Madhei, which is the burning issue facing Goa today. I feel that it will be an innovative practice for public policy. Now, the issue, as we all know, is fairly well known. The issue is at a stalemate now, despite the fact that there is a tribunal verdict that has come. We know that the issue has environmental, economic, cultural, legal, and political dimensions. What we also know is that Goa, is being a small state, has really been at the receiving end of the entire discourse, whether it is interstate or center-state discourse. Although none of the three states are happy with the verdict as it has come, but I think Goa has a reason to be worried more than the other states. And therefore, our approach towards this, I think, needs an integrated, holistic approach, which should be based on an interdisciplinary understanding of what is in the state's best interest. Now, I have a strong reason to believe, although others may disagree with me, that this has not happened so far. Well, lawyers have been going their own way, activists have been going their own way. The political dimension of the problem has been studied by political scientists alone. I feel now is the need for all of them to come together and perhaps create a knowledge paradigm where perhaps we can argue before either the courts or the center that the solution for a smaller state cannot be the same, particularly when it comes to small state versus the big state, for which the tribunals tend to apply a very standard template. So, I mean, this is a small case study which I just thought I would share with you. But I would say that the National Education Policy document, by way of its focus on multidisciplinarity, makes a very good start, something which needs to be encouraged. But focusing on multidisciplinarity alone will just lead to creation of, I think, multidisciplinary centers of higher learning. Without these centers coming together and providing us a chance to look at social problems in an innovative way. A lot more in sciences, I mean, bioinformatics, genetic engineering, the very good example which was given of the new master's program, integrated master's program in data sciences. But then I would like to see similar things happening as far as social sciences is concerned. And therefore, I do see an opportunity in a slight push that can be given to greater interdisciplinarity in our higher education system. I think Goa as a state is best placed to argue a case for interdisciplinary clusters. We already have multidisciplinary colleges. We interact with each other a lot more than perhaps other universities in the state. So these are some of the points which I just wanted to mention today, and I'll be very happy to receive your comments and questions. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Professor Rahul Tripathi, for giving your thoughts on multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary aspect of higher education in social science. So we'll have the questions at the end. Now we'll go to the third speaker, Dr. Nandakumar Kamath. He'll be talking on innovation and entrepreneurship as an integral part of national higher education policy. Dr. Nandakumar Kamath, please.
Good evening. I hope you are all in a position to listen to me, because the problem of power interruption is always there in the campus. I'm speaking from home. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yes, fine, clear. Yeah, go ahead, please.
So when we talk about National Education Policy 2020, I remember discussions in which I was involved. In National Education Policy 1987, we had number of seminars from 1985 to 87. At that time, our university was very young, but there were many NGOs who had come forward to organize 1 or 2 day conventions. Now my mind goes back to the day on which I entered this huge education ecosystem called India's education ecosystem. That was in June 1964. So from that day onwards, I have experienced these pitfalls and merits and demerits and all the inconsistencies of this education system. And basically, we are going into absolutely wrong direction, because the consumers are finally the students. So if the students are innovative, students are passionate, students are inquisitive, the leadership has vision, and the teachers are also equally innovative and passionate, then only it is possible to translate any type of education policy into action. Now, what is so special about this new education policy? I cannot disclose what is going on in the two groups, that is two task forces of national education policy. I'm a member of one group, that is the school education, and two subgroups are there in which we are, I'm contributing. One is to amalgamate high schools and higher secondaries, and another one is looking at disadvantaged sections and certification system, testing system for schools also. I have seen a lot as a member of Executive Council and General Body of Goa Board of Secondary and Higher Secondary Education, and previously the member of Senate and Academic Council of Goa University as well. And my association with the entire educational discourse in Goa goes back to the days of our student movement from 1977, which led to the formation of Goa University. So, having enriched myself with all these undercurrents and thought processes, I reserve my own personal perception of the national education policy, the way it will be implemented nationally, regionally, and locally 5, 10, or 15 years from today. Because we have to first build what are known as the appropriate scenarios for 21st century, because that is the emphasis which Dr. Kasturirangan has given. And it is for the first time in the history of India, it's the first time anywhere in the world that you find a technocrat, a space engineer who is an alumnus of Bombay University, leading this mission of formulating the national education policy. And it's not easy. They got more than 400,000 suggestions, and the process was going on for several years. And you know that it's not easy to launch a rocket like geostationary launch vehicle or polar stationary launch vehicle, because these two big rockets, they have more than 100,000 components. So a rocket engineer knows how to put together these lakhs of components and launch it successfully, because after all, it is a system engineering, and that is where you see the hand of Professor Kasturirangan in shaping out this futuristic national education policy, because the policy is merely a document which is a guiding document. It is not, and in all, there is a lot of built-in flexibility there for innovation and entrepreneurship. About entrepreneurship, My friend Mangirish Bab will speak soon, and I'm happy to see him here because he was the person, industrialist, who inaugurated our first batch of choice-based credit course, a new course launched in botany department 10 years back, known as Bio Entrepreneurship and Innovation. We had thought about the future of this state and also the employment sector. Now, when we look at the national education policy, there are two important words, that is innovation, that is Navinyata, we call it Navinyata, and second is entrepreneurship. Now, both are interlinked because innovation can lead to entrepreneurship or employment. But in a state like Goa, where everybody is chasing government, regular, permanent jobs, there is a big question mark how to inculcate the spirit of entrepreneurship. So I had got passed a resolution in the Executive Council board, meeting of Goa SSC Board to start training programs jointly with Economic Development Corporation, and we held a Masters Teachers Training Program last year in Porvorim, where 100 teachers from different higher secondary schools were trained in inculcating the spirit of entrepreneurship right from 9th standard onwards. And this skill development is a focus of the entire national education policy, because to be innovative, you have to think differently out of box. And we are a civilization which has contributed Bhaskaracharya, Aryabhatta, and so many other scientists and universities like Takshashila and Nalanda, where innovation was the spirit. We lost it because of colonialism, casteism, and lots of superstitions. Our country was tormented by internal various types of conflicts. And just now, as India is taking off as a knowledge superpower, technological superpower, scientific superpower, I think the entire focus of national education policy is to build futuristic scenarios. So for state like Goa also, we have to think about these scenarios, business as usual scenario. If we do not do anything, what would happen? If we just go ahead with our choice-based credit system, our memory-based examination, where students learn everything by heart, they expect easy question papers, direct questions, direct answers, high marks, and they think they know every subject. Or we move away from this system and make the students actually work, get experience, develop skills. These are big question marks. And as I said, that everything depends on the type of students and their present worldview and future worldview. Like Bill Gates asked in his book, Road Ahead, ask the student in your class, what is his or her future 5 years from today? Whenever I question my own students, many of the students could not project their future 5 or 10 years from today. Because to project the future 5 or 10 years from today, you must know where you stand at present. Then only it is possible to predict where you will be 5 years or 10 years from today. And that is precisely what that national education policy is aiming at. So we have largest education ecosystem on earth and in human history. We have 400 million students in India, which is largest number. We have 101 lakh teachers, out of which 87 lakh teachers are at schools and 14 lakhs are at college. Our education system has crossed $100 billion investment. We have 40,000 colleges and we have more than 1,000 universities. And if you look at the diversity of universities, you will be astounded to know that we have 54 central universities, 416 state universities, 125 deemed universities, 361 private universities, 7 institutes under State Legislature Act, and we have 159 institutes of national importance, many of which have got global ranks like IIMs, AIMS, IITs, IITs, IISERs, NITs, but we still have a long way to go. Now, the focus of the national education policy is to tap the imagination of our youth, and that is what they call demographic dividend. We have 650 million youth, which is the largest number in the world. That means the youngest population is there in India. We have largest number of youth in world in India, and we have diversity. That is what is a very defining character of our civilization. We have 426 languages, 22 scheduled languages, 35 agroclimatic division. We have a long coastline which has to be tapped for economic and employment benefit. And we have got a huge exclusive economic zone. And we have a large human diversity, large species and genetic diversity, large agro biodiversity. We have large number of unique animal breeds, and we can go on speaking about mineral resources. So we are a third largest economy in the world. The education policy looks at it, how to make it the top, the economy in the world in next 20, 25 years, because we will be overtaking China very soon in number of the people, that is by population, we will rank first within next 20 to 30 years. But still we are, after US and China, the third largest economy. And if we look at the innovative way our farmers have gone about, our milk producers have gone about the production despite famines and droughts and all these things, really there is a big, huge scope for our youth. If they are properly trained under national education policy, then we can not only maintain our rank as largest producer of milk, pulses, jute, and second largest producer of rice, wheat, sugarcane, groundnut, vegetables, fruit, and cotton. We are also leading producers of spices, fish, poultry, livestock, and plantation crop. So we can see that India is land of not only milk and honey, but also of opportunities. We also have 190 million cattle, which is second largest cattle population in the world. And that also requires a huge amount of innovation in terms of the productivity of milk and dairy products and various other animal products. So with 34 global biodiversity hotspots, 200 ecoregions, for students of life sciences, there is a huge opportunity of bioprospecting and creating and tapping the biological wealth. So we have the weaknesses as well. We have 220 million poor. Our unemployment rate is 7%. The national education policy wants to impart vocational education from a young stage and remove this unemployment. But still, a big issue of concern is the unemployment among the educated youth, which stands at 60%. Among these, we still have, and this figure differs from state to state, we have 16% unemployment among the graduates and 11% among the postgraduates. Then all of us who are working in the science, my colleagues included, we have seen now how much money we need for launching these innovative practices and boosting entrepreneurship spirit among our students, because there is not enough investment on research and innovation. For example, if you see our percentage of expenditure as percentage of GDP, India spends only 0.7% of GDP on research and innovation, and you can compare it to 4% in Israel and South Korea and 3% in USA. If these countries are winning Nobel Prizes, especially USA and all, the reason is their investment on research, in research and innovation is several times higher in these countries. So what is the purpose of national education policy? Basically, it is to identify and foster the unique capabilities of each student by promoting creativity and critical thinking. That is very important. The student should ask why. That why is never asked because we are not imparting the questioning skills right from the beginning. Now that is what is aimed at 5 + 3 + 3 + 4 level. Another objective is to promote extensive use of technology in teaching, learning, then remove language barriers, then encourage innovation and out-of-box ideas by imparting autonomy, then improving the governance of various educational institutions and empower them so that they can take many of their decisions themselves. Then the national education policy also talks about promoting outstanding research and establishing what is known as digital infrastructure for knowledge sharing, Diksha, by forming a national repository of high quality resources on foundational literacy and numeracy. Then they talk about technological interventions to serve as aids to teachers and to help breach any language barriers that may exist between teachers and students. Because हांव जे आता इतलें हांव इंग्लिशींतल्यान उलयलां तें हांव कोंकणींतल्यान, मराठींतल्यान, हिंदींतल्यानय उलोवंक शकता आनी ही कॅपॅसिटी आमच्या शिक्षकां कडेन आली पाहिजे और उनको ये मालूम होना चाहिए कि किसी भी भाषा में वो भाषांतर करके, अनुवाद करके अहंकार करून भाषांतर करून ते शिकू शकतात. ही कॅपॅसिटी ही फक्त आमच्या भारतान आसा, कित्याक ह्या नॅशनल एज्युकेशन पॉलिसीचो स्ट्रेस आणि फोकस आसतलो की एकूच भाशेन भुरग्यांक एज्युकेट करपाचें ना, तर तांकां जाता तितल्या चडांत चड भाशांचें आणि फॉरेन लँग्वेजीचें ट्रेनिंग दिवपाचें. So technological interventions to serve as aids to teachers and help bridge any language barrier, this is one of the objective. Then the policy looks at better learning resources, like new books will be there, very good books, and they will be using e-books and the latest technologies to produce a very enjoyable and user-friendly books. Then open distance learning programs called ODLs, then National Institute of Open Schooling is one of the objective. Then open schools will be there for those students who cannot attain physically. Then classroom transaction will be competency-based learning and education to close gap in achievement of learning outcome. Then, as Professor Mendis has already informed you, that best of the campuses of the Indian universities, they will be chosen best Indian universities, and they will also set up campuses abroad. And the best of the global universities will be encouraged to set up their campuses in India. And there will be competition between the states for the same. And state universities, central universities also will have to compete with these globally ranked universities. But our students will get the best of the knowledge and education, and they will learn better in terms of picking up this innovative spirit and also launching startups, because the startup ecosystem in India ranks third. India ranks third in the startup ecosystem today. Mangarish Bab will shed more light on that. And there is also one big area in which India is going to develop very fast, and Professor Kasturirangan has also spoken on the science and technological dimension of national education policy, because he says that artificial intelligence is going to be launched in a big way. And along with that, you just cannot just have software or hardware based on artificial intelligence. If you use Google Translate app on your mobile, you can translate text or even spoken words into beautiful, the translated version from one language to other language. You can all try it and learn the skills of machine translation. But for artificial intelligence to be active, we need mathematics and computational thinking, because without mathematics and computational thinking, it is impossible to really have precision in innovation. So there will be emphasis right from the school days on these mathematical and computational thinking. Then, as Professor Mendis has already highlighted some aspects of the the roadmap which will be there for state of Goa, that research and innovation will be promoted in higher education institutions like, say, Goa University, BITS, Pilani and all. They will be forming what are known as incubation centers, technology development centers, and centers in frontier areas of research. Like, we know we are good in certain areas like biodiversity research, oceanography, marine sciences. We are very good in on the west coast and also in western India. So these are the areas where we can develop further excellence. Then policy also empowers higher education institution to conduct innovative teaching, research, service, and it is left to them. So basically what I believe that in arts and humanities, as my colleague Professor Tripathi has said about multidisciplinarity, it should have come long back, but never late. And I believe that such concepts could also be launched in all the faculties to establish such type of multidisciplinary clusters, because that is the autonomy given by the national education policy. Professor Mendis has also talked about a new institution known as National Research Foundation. And I believe that this is one of the very important contributions of national education policy that will boost innovation and entrepreneurship, because there will be IPR cell also which will recognize the intellectual property of innovators. Right now, Goa State Innovation Council gives all necessary support for young innovators, but they will fund research in all disciplines. It will promote technical education and innovation in fields like engineering, technology, management, architecture, town planning, pharmacy, hotel management, catering technology. All these areas will be funded by National Research Foundation. And there will be another institutional body called National Educational Technology Forum, or NETF, which will provide platform for free exchange of ideas on the use of technology to enhance learning, assessment, planning, administration for school and higher education. one of the major issue which we have seen during the pandemic period is digital divide, that is computer haves, laptop haves and laptop have nots, mobile haves and mobile have nots, software haves, apps have and apps have not, and also the problem of connectivity. So there are areas where there is excellent connectivity, there are areas where there is poor connectivity, there are areas where there is no connectivity, there are also issues like availability of good electronic resources. So this digital divide will be bridged by implementation of the policy, which will stress on content creation, digital repository and dissemination, pilot studies for online education, digital infrastructure, and several other areas. We have to remember that Indians are very innovative. You can see our farmers, you can see our villagers, what they know as Jugad. They just identify, the appropriate local technological solution that has been going on since the days of Mohenjo-daro and Harappa civilization. We have to just look at even the salt industry. They don't need any mechanization there, but still they are producing thousands of metric tons of the local salt using their own innovative technologies. So basically, we have to look at our civilizational ethos, our ethos of innovation right from the days of discovery of Raman effect by Nobel laureate C.V. Raman. And one of his colleagues who had come to Goa, he narrated this story that C.V. Raman spent only 300 rupees, a mirror to reflect the sunlight, one collimator, then one umbrella, and just one beam of sunlight passing through his spectroscope and a tube of benzene produced the Stokes and anti-Stokes line, interpretation of which led to the Raman effect. So only 300 rupees, and the apparatus to discover Raman effect was designed by C.V. Raman himself. There were days when Chandrasekhar Bose had designed his own instrument. Ramanujan was just calculating and writing the equation in a notebook, but he was one of the famous mathematicians. And we have so many other innovative scientists and technologists in India who have contributed. Kirloskar introduced the plow and it revolutionized the farm mechanization in Western India and South India. Jamshed Tata introduced steel making in Jamshedpur, and we know how India revolutionized steel making. And you can see Bajaj scooter also, how Bajaj transformed the middle class of India by introduction of a simple, affordable two-wheeler like Bajaj Chetak scooter. So lots of such innovations are taking place right now in front of us in food processing, in micro miniaturization, in electronics, in consumer durables. And I believe our friend Mangirish Bab will be able to throw much more light on that. But basically, to end this whole presentation, we have to actually look at our enthusiastic young generation, because we are standing on their shoulders. The 650 million youth and 400 million students in India is a big, big resource. And the national education policy looks at this resource. And if this resource is intelligently, imaginatively tapped, I have no doubts that India will take its rightful position as a knowledge superpower after full implementation of national education policy. And we have taken today a small step in that direction by organizing this program, for which I thank my former colleagues, Professor Rodrigues and Professor Krishnan, and everyone at Goa University for arranging this program and giving me an opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kamath, for your thoughts on National Educational Policy 2020, and with special reference to innovation and entrepreneurship. Thank you. Next, I invite Shri Mangirish Pai Raikar to give his talk on streaming through vocational education. Sir.
Thank you very much, Professor Krishnan. Thank you, Professor Bernard, and my colleagues on the panel today, the eminent professors, my friend Dr. Nandakumar, Dr. Rahul Tripathi, and Dr. Gervasio Mendes. You have been elaborate, and you have given almost all the factors that factor in this new education policy. So it is sometimes better to speak at the last, so that you only summarize and try to give some inputs. I would like to make a start from the point of view that, India was known to be a educational, epicenter long, long ago with Nalanda and Takshashila, where the key universities for the world students to come. Today, we make a beeline for the, US and UK universities and German universities. But we, at one particular time, where the masters, like we gave the zero to the world, we gave astronomy to the world. There are so many things which, even Charaka, the health, if you go to the Charaka, you will find solutions for all the health, pandemics or whatever that comes our way. But we do not make a proper attempt to look at it. Having said this, new educational policy, which has come after 36 years, after the last policy had come to light, how has it come? It has taken several years of deliberation. And I would like to make a mention here that I was one of the, because they have made, all the stakeholders to come and deliberate. And like Dr. Nandakumar said, that there were so many people, so many suggestions, so many questions which arose. But there were very basic necessities, which were to be looked into. And I was very fortunate to be invited to discuss on this subject by MHRD, especially in the presence of Dr. V.S. Mehrotra, who is the chairman, who was the director of PSS CIVE, a Center for Vocational Education. And in Delhi, we had series of meetings where the major discussion was held on three aspects. And the aspects was redesigning the structure of school curriculum to incorporate early childhood care and education. Very, very important aspect was curtailing dropouts for ensuring universal access to education and increasing gross enrollment in higher education to 50% in the ensuing years. Besides this, what came to the fore is improving the innovation and the research. Because what is important, without innovation, without research, without the new innovative ideas coming to the fore, the nation cannot progress. And if the nation has to march forward, what is important and what is essential is something new to be brought to the table, which has to take the world by storm. See how the new changes which have come. You would have never thought that in the year 1996, what was available, and if we had lived with the same thing today, where would have we been in this era of pandemic? Because in those times, we had those telephones which we had to stay in the queue even for a call from one city to another. But just getting the mobile phones has revolutionized the entire telecom sector and the entire telecom industry. And having done that, it has generated employment to the millions of people across, and also has given rise to so many new innovative minds that India is today boasting that we supply to the world the key IT personnel. Now, having said that, we need people because today when we talk about new investments to come to India, what do the investor look at? The investor doesn't look at only the infrastructure part of it, but he looks at the people to work there, and the people to work there have to be suitably trained. And the suitable training has to be shop floor training, and more so into the vocational training part of it. We know that the German government is focusing more on vocational education, and because of that, they have proved to be the best designers, and they could give whatever that the research has come out has been commercialized and put forward to the consumers thanks to the effective hands of the skilled, trained manpower. And this is same thing which we need in the times today. Like changing market and industrial demands present a need before the higher education sector to redefine and align themselves to the needs of the market. There are major requirements from the viewpoint of skilling for employability and emotional stability. Skills needed to support basic needs of life through hands-on experience, real life practice, and learning tools to economize earnings and time both. Skills are needed to continuously support and sustain existing employment and progression by updating skills expected by employers from its employees. It is also crucial to understand the social dimensions of skilling, where skilling gets acquired through family traits and practices. In India, we had, earlier time, the family trade would continue from generation to generation. But these need to be upgraded and utilized as tools and developed time to time so that one does not lose in the competition. So we need, from the point of view of achieving this learning, the skills and getting the training, why not convert it into the entrepreneurship of an individual? This would definitely take the goods to the society, to the homes of the people who need the services. So this is something which we need to look into, and that is what the new education policy has really made a dent into. In fact, now if you see India, like Dr. Nandakumar has already mentioned, is one of the youngest nations in the world with more than 62% of its population in the working age group of 15 to 59 and more than 54% of its total population below 25% of age. This presents a formidable opportunity as well as huge challenge, because we talk about demographic dividends. Because if we do not have these people properly and suitably trained in the art and the craft that they would desire, then the entire dividend would go down the drain. And in fact, it would be nuisance to the society if we do not achieve the means of training this manpower. So every year, out of 15 million youth entering the job market, over 75% are not job ready. This is the fact of today. This stark difference is due to lack of technical and soft skills. Paucity of highly trained workforce is the most important criteria why we are lacking in the adequate investments which do not foresee their establishment in the country. In fact, just giving the land and just giving the infrastructure would not entice those people to put their money where the place is. So we need, with limited job skill and dual challenges to be addressed to reap the demographic dividend, we need a proper focused attention towards this younger generation, and they need to be given proper training and shop floor training for that matter. I was also a part of the group which was established, and we actually brought about a total change in the system of polytechnics, where now it is made compulsory that minimum of 2 months have to be spent on the shop floor by the students, and this will give him the whiff of work culture on in the establishment, and he would also make him ready to be incorporated in the system, so that the getting job would be much easier. In fact, when we met in the stakeholders meeting, we actually formed a group where we focused on the 10 main points, which I would like to just make a mention, but some of which have already been identified by our eminent speakers. The national education policy, which envisages some transformational reforms in the Indian education system, talks about education system that lays emphasis on experimental learning along with the focus on 21st century skills like critical thinking, problem solving, and in fact it makes your thinking mind go critical, so that the new ideas come to the fore and which can be taken up for the commercial production. The policy expects that by year 2030, as I mentioned earlier, more than 50% of the learners have to be taken through a higher education system and given them an exposure to vocational education. I would like to just make mention of some of the points, like vision for balanced education, socially meaningful and aspirational, no hard separation between art and science, between curricular and extracurricular activities, between vocational and academic streams. And in order to eliminate harmful hierarchies among and silos between the different areas of learning, to bring in reimagination of vocational education and sensitization for building competencies. Vocational education is perceived to be inferior to the mainstream education and meant largely for students who are unable to cope with the latter. This is a perception that affects the choices students make. It is a serious concern that can only be dealt with by a complete reimagination of how vocational education is offered to the students in the future. So we need to overhaul this vocational education, and we need to give it a focused, go. Inclusive, interoperable, interdisciplinary, and outcome-based education. In fact, when framed, it is expected that learning outcome for higher education program, also referred to as graduate attributes, a national higher education qualification framework has to be formulated so that it can sync with the national skill of qualification framework to ease the integration of vocational education into higher education. In fact, if we are talking about 21st century capacity building, a holistic and multidisciplinary education will help develop well-rounded individuals that possess critical 21st century capacities in fields across the arts, humanities, languages, sciences, social sciences, and professional, technical, vocational fields. An ethic of social engagement, soft skills such as communication, discussion, and debate, and rigorous specialization in a chosen field or fields. School internship for skill appreciation and craft-centric learning. Every student has to have a fun course. He has to get interested in studying, in knowledge, in acquiring more knowledge. And this can be done at lower grades like grade 6 to 8, that gives a survey or hands-on experience of a sampling of important vocational craft such as carpentry, electric work, metal work, gardening, pottery, etc., as decided by the state or the local authorities, as mapped by the local skilling needs. Professional development of teachers is also going to be very, very important, because without this, the students will not get the knowledge that needs to be which will empower them, in fact, which will empower them and which will encourage them if they inculcate the real essence of the education. So the experts organization in teacher preparation and development is a need today. So, sorry. The expert bodies in the vocational education and higher education institution has to keep this in mind before they take the next step. Integration, I think Dr. Nandakumar, you as a member of this board can think about this, that very, very important aspect is training the trainers. That would be the main aspect if you are really going to prepare this generation for this coming coming years. So integration of vocational education and academic learning, as I mentioned earlier, vocational education has to be integrated into all school and higher education institutions in a phased manner over the next decade. Focus areas for vocational education have to be chosen based on skill gap analysis and mapping of the local opportunities. The local committees have already been formed, and I'm sure they would look into this matter. job market orientation with multiple entry and exit options. In fact, the undergraduate degree, which has given an option of entry and exit, that, if he does for 1 year, he gets a certificate, 2 years, he gets a diploma, 3 years, he gets a degree. In fact, this is the best thing that has been realized, because, what is important is that he doesn't spend his, waste his years. And most important is because of the, no proper infrastructure, or because of the maybe the family problems, peer problems, the people have to leave and then can come back and study the rest. In fact, this is a very, very important aspect, that he can exit and entry. This is something, which is going to help the students in the coming year. Technological development and student entrepreneurship. Given the explosive pace of technological development allied with sheer creativity of tech-savvy teachers and entrepreneurs, including student entrepreneurs, it is certain that technology will impact education in a multiple way, only some of which can be foreseen at the present time. In fact, some of the points that I have mentioned, in fact, will help, to put this new education policy on the proper pedestal, and also help the new generation to be more innovative, to be more responsive, to be more producive, to be more, effective. And I'm sure this would help them to make a good career for themselves, not only a career, but a decent career, which will also, bring about the total socio-economic change in the society, which we, which we think to improve and bring about the better, sense, so that, all live in peace and harmony. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to present myself. I'm ready for any questions, if any. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your interesting talk and emphasizing on importance of the vocational education in schools and colleges. And now what we'll do is we have come to an end of the 4 talks, and now we'll open up for the discussion, and any questions or clarifications or suggestions you can put forth. I'm inviting questions from faculty members and students, or others who are attending these sessions. Thank you. Any questions? Yes, you can put on your mic, and you can go ahead with it. And also some questions have been put forth in chat box. And also you can tell these questions, you can also put on your mic and ask questions, no problem. And also which speaker you are asking the question also you can tell.
Yeah, there is a question Sabina Roy has asked. In fact, I have just talked about, the skilling of the teachers. I would like to give an example here.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Yeah, when the new CET was introduced some 10 years back, there was a separate, syllabus for the 12th and separate for the CET. And it made, a very difficult scenario for the teachers. And especially the teachers were not prepared. At that particular period of time, I had taken up this issue with the government and, brought it to their notice that this is creating harm to the students at large. And finally, we got the teachers to undergo training, which they had to ultimately do if they had to continue with the service. And thanks to BITS Pilani, who organized the faculties for this training course. So likewise, I would suggest now with the new syllabus which will be coming in place, because most of the syllabus would go for a revamp, would go for a change, would definitely look forward to the new things coming to light. I'm sure the teachers would need brushing up and also some sort of a some training has to be undertaken, and I'm sure the university can think of this in this line to undertake a massive train the trainer program where the new syllabus and the new innovative things which come to the fore need to be passed on to the teachers first, who then can take it to the students. I'm sure this they must have already planned about. If not, they should think about.
Thank you, sir. I thank you so much.
Thank you. And there is one question here for Dr. Kamath. What are your comments on the role of libraries in NEP? One question has come, put in the chat box. It says that, what are your comments on the role of libraries in NEP?
So this is a huge area of discussion for which you can organize a separate webinar. Role of reading, role of digital reading, digital dependence, online libraries, virtual libraries is a huge area. There are readers and there are those who hate books. So basically all states, most of the states have their state library acts. So they have that domain already carved out. What is to be done under State Library Act? So as far as the education is concerned, there will be emphasis on strengthening of both offline and online educational resources at all levels of education, right from pre-primary, primary. There is no separate module as such in NEP, but I believe that care will be taken to provide the best learning and reading resources to everyone who will join the new knowledge-based ecosystem under the National Education Policy. There is what is known as the Digital Library of India and several other initiatives. The biggest problem is that at our university level, as a member of Goa University Library Advisory Committee, I had requested the librarian to conduct a readership survey to see what are the reading habits of those who join the postgraduate courses. So far, they have not conducted the readership survey. Such readership surveys are very important to know whether the students are reading at all or they think that reading means only need-based temporary digital reading. By reading, what I mean is the need of the library, right from the big library in Alexandria to what is destroyed at Takshashila and the National Library at Kolkata or even State Central Library. We know that the reading habits have to be inculcated right from the beginning. But right now, what is happening that we are not creating inquisitive and analytical minds. We are not encouraging complementary and supplementary reading at any level. And we are creating what Nicholas Carr says in his books, a dumb and shallow society. So that is a big challenge for libraries and librarians. And we can see the footfalls in our own library before lockdown and after the normalcy is restored. 150 visitors per day, that was the last count. So there is a big challenge before library ecosystem to get integrated with the teaching ecosystem, research ecosystem. But I am quite hopeful that India will turn the tide in years to come. And there would be more emphasis in providing lots of digital learning, reading resources in future. As far as my role is concerned as the chairman of, this is nothing to do with the today's webinar, but by way of information, there is a task force committee appointed under my chairmanship by Government of Goa, which has been given 1 year extension. We have different subcommittees to look into the aspects. And the National Education Policy, suddenly we got this opportunity also, and all the expectations, irrespective of whether people are reading, students are reading or not, teachers are using books or not. We will try to see that people are brought back to the library, students are brought back to the libraries, reading habits are inculcated right from the beginning, and there are more bibliophiles in the society. So I believe it is a job of every parent to purchase books, have a small library at home, and encourage reading habits among the young people, without which libraries cannot exist. Libraries need the users, and only then it is possible for have further progressive reforms and restructuring. But I'm absolutely positive that although specifically libraries are not mentioned in the national education policy, learning, digital resources, knowledge resources, there is a lot of mention about these, and the infrastructure is being put in place. Already some of that is in place, like we can see our own university repository, we can see NIO repository, we can see National Digital Library, we can see Krishi Kosh, we can see UGC Shodha Sindhu. All these are there, and there are less users as compared to our vast educated population. So the ball is in the court of the users and not in the court of the librarians. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Kamath. Professor Rahul, you want to come in?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to this very, very interesting question. And I think Madam Sabina had put that question. You might as well extend the domain of this question to what will be the role of the teachers in the emerging system. So, and I think the role of the library books and the role of the teachers in the evolving situations and circumstances will have to be reassessed very, very much. Unless that is done, I think whatever objectives the NEP talks about in terms of skills, learning, digital empowerment will not be met. My first point is that libraries would continue to be relevant. I agree with Professor Kamath, but what is important is now what will be the structure of this library. In a situation where a lot of digital platforms, now again Goa being in Dr. Mendes mentioned, most of our lectures being available on online, they being recorded. Certainly, there will be a kind of a dearth. I mean, there will not be a dearth of things to choose from. So selecting what is right and what is not required immediately will be a very important thing. So teachers' role, therefore, will also have to be visualized as that of a facilitator. Very soon, we will have inputs on how the one semester went on with online teaching and online resources. And the messages that we get from students so far is that, I mean, perhaps they are becoming now comfortable, at least for the university audience. I cannot say that for sure as far as the colleges are concerned. So I think the role of the library, the new library, will have to be very, very commensurate with the role of the teacher in this new circumstances. The teacher has to be able to make the students aware of how to select out the references, separate out the references that he needs for particular things. Otherwise, students are going to be overburdened with data and knowledge. That's a small submission I would like to make.
Thank you, Professor Rahul. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I'm done.
Yeah, okay, yeah, thank you. Any other speakers want to give any concluding remarks?
Can I speak?
Yeah, sure, sir, sure. Yes.
I was very happy. I was very happy to listen to, of course, the case study that Professor Rahul has in mind. But more importantly, what Mr. Mangirish Bab had to say and Nandakumar Bab had to say about the faith and the trust that we have, that if at all this policy has to reach its logical end, it is we who have to be the initiators and the student community which will have to rise up to the occasion to make this. Because what he was saying, especially when it comes to vocational education, the data that is given in the document is a stark reminder to us of what happens when you pay lip service to vocational institute of education. 19 to 24, less than 5% in that age group received vocational education in our country, as compared to 52% in Germany, 75% in South Korea, and 52% in Germany, in US, 75% in Germany, and around 96%. That's a whopping high percentage of people who are ushered into vocational edge of education. The point here is we have today made the vocational student or any aspirant in vocational education an outcast of the educational system. Look at how it pans out at the high school level. Somebody who has got a very good percentage gets into science, the next cutoff gets into commerce, the next will get into arts, and the remaining so-called remnants are forced into vocational edge of education. This starts the disease, and eventually you find vocational education is looked down upon. I think this is the right time for us to change the way things as teachers, as well as students, that vocationalization of education and vocational education per se gets its rightful place in the society. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, sir, for your concluding remarks. It's very important, whatever you mentioned now.
Can I just have a small query to Mangesh Ba?
Yes, Professor Rahul.
Yeah. Mangesh sir, sorry, just to ask you, I do remember that the Goa Chamber of Commerce used to have this education committee, which
Yes.
was a good forum for brainstorming. So I hope the forum still continues and there are representatives from university or educational institutes. Just a query.
The education committee is still on, and I'm not aware right now who is heading it or who is in the committee, but the committee is there, that much I know.
It is there, sir. It is there.
It is there.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So maybe there could be several other brainstormings with them also on the issue of entrepreneurship innovation, which I'm sure it must be going on.
Yeah, anybody who would like to be part of it can contact Mr. Kamath, our Director General, and give his consent. He would definitely make it possible.
I had given my consent, but I was not considered earlier.
No, I will talk to them.
I was there for the committee, education and environment, but there is some pecking order. I don't know what interests are involved in that, but I didn't feel good about it. Anyway, I want to make certain very important comment on basis of what I have seen and observed 56 years. The national education policy for me is like any other policy. I have made several policies for the state government, which have brought a lot of difference in the life of the people. Like state cultural policy was the first in India. Then biotechnology policy, which was gazetted and has helped the industries. And food processing policy, which is a very important policy to create 10,000 jobs. Now, the point that I'm making is the transformation that is taking place in front of us. Right now, we are not actually discussing any of the real issues outside our campuses. Like there are Zilla Parishad election, but our students may not know what is the Zilla Panchayat and what are the constitutional duties of the citizen and all those type of things, which we knew right in the college. What is Constitution of India? What are my fundamental duties? We knew right from the college days. So that's very important. I believe three forces will be deciding the future of this policy in the coming years. First, the forces which will be acting on the family. Second, the forces outside in the society. And thirdly, the forces which will be within the educational institutions. And what are the forces? Now I have to ask this question to all the teachers, the parents, and the students, irrespective of the level of their education or what teaching they are doing or learning they are doing. That is, are we less or more casteist? Are we less or more communal? Are we less or more regionalistic or parochial? Are we less or more progressive? Are we less or more superstitious? Are we less or more modern? These are important issues. Or do we really respect knowledge? Because I have not seen in my entire career in the university that there is any respect, even a little bit of respect for knowledge and knowledgeable person. Now, this is a comment I can qualify with detailed evidences and writing. I encounter students who had not read anything beyond Chetan Bhagat or few paperbacks. Year after year after year, they were only interested in getting good marks in every compulsory and elective topic. How are we going to change this under new education policy where parents are forcing the students to get high marks, get ranks, get successful? Now, these are the pressures which are going to work in highly urbanized society like Goa. We are reaching 75% of urbanization. So the role of education system in Goa, the Goa University has to be tailor-made to accommodate the transformation which is taking place under this highly urbanized society. It shouldn't be more caste, it shouldn't be more communal, it shouldn't be more parochial, non-Goan, Goan, Goicho, Bailo, Gati, all these types of currents you can see right now in society. So how the students who enter the system are going to be real, constitutionally minded, modern, progressive, secular Indian citizens? How are we going to turn out good Indian citizens? This is the biggest question. Other small things are matters of details for the policymakers. But when it comes to the classroom, when it comes to the society out on the street, when it comes to the families which are getting increasingly dysfunctional, in Goa at least, we can see in coastal areas and also in Western Ghat talukas, alcoholism, drugs, crimes against women, you can see now the social realities. And we have a big challenge, and that's why we shouldn't stop at this webinar. We should have a number of thematic sessions to deal with the real issues which will confront our graduates and postgraduates out on the street as they search for employment or want to become self-employed, and they want to settle down as good, progressive, modern Indian citizens. These are my genuine concern on basis of 56 years of my experience of this education system in state of Goa.
I would like to make an addition, Professor Krishnan, if I...
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Today we see the students, they study for those 3 hours. And if they are successful in those 3 hours in scripting whatever they have mugged up on those ruled papers, then they get through with flying colors and they have achieved their means. This system need to be changed, and this is what exactly we were discussing in those stakeholders meeting that we had in Delhi and Bhopal. I was very vociferous on this topic because most of the time the education we are just trying to make them literate but not educated. This is a very important factor which I want to present. And what is important is just getting to through the most of the people I have found is that the moment they have appeared for the exam and they have come out, next day you question them on what they had studied and they cannot answer it. This is what I have seen over the years. I mean, what was the use of mugging up so much that he doesn't know the exact the basics of what he has studied? Now, this is something which need to with a drastic change, and here is where the vocational education comes to the fore. And we have most of the people in the academics also put vocational education on the lowest pedestal as if it has got no value at all. But let me tell you, vocational education, if anybody has studied, he gives the maximum output and the best output. And let me tell you, today the biggest employer like Tata's, they don't employ people coming out of IITs or IIMs. They have more faith on the people with better vocational education and a better treatment on the shop floor. Now, these are the things which are slowly coming up. Mahindras have started following the track. The other people are also starting. So slowly it will come to a fore that vocational education will be the crux of the future. And this is something, which we need to bring it to the level of the other academic, stature. And I'm sure with this, new change in the policy which has come, and I'm sure it will be, put to practice in times to come, that more and more people who would be, in the teaching line would be trained to tell them and to give the exact nuance of what they are teaching, and not just, taking it on a roughshod manner. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'm sure a lot of students are attending this webinar. I think you may take a note of this remarks, concluding remarks made by all the speakers, because several points have been put forth by them. It is come within, because they, based on the experience, they have been sharing this. So I am very sure the students attending, they will get benefited and taking these all points in consideration. So with this, it is also time, and we have come to end of this program. Almost 2 hours we had this webinar session, and I'm really very happy that all the 4 speakers have been put forth. There are several points and we have learned, and I'm sure everyone has benefited from this. And as many of the speakers mentioned, that this is the starting point, and we'll also go ahead and organizing several related talk what Dr. Kamath and other speakers have mentioned. So we will do so in the future. Since we have come to an end of this program, I have the pleasant duty of proposing vote of thanks. I take this opportunity to thank all the speakers, namely Professor Gervasio Mendes and Professor Rahul Tripathi and Dr. Nandkumar Kamath and Shri Mangurushi Pai Raikar. So yeah, really it was excellent to have you here. And definitely each and every the attendees, they would have got benefited from this. And also I take this opportunity to thank you for coming with, even though you had a busy schedule, you can be with us to give this lecture, and your advices and various other points raised during this presentation. I also take this opportunity to thank all the participants for their presence and their interaction. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.